All right, yes, here come all the attendees. I'll just give it a second as everyone is kind of filtering in.
We should have rehearsed a song.
Well, we could do the Brady Bunch theme, and we're set up kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like entrance music.
I'm Cindy. I get to be Cindy.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm so thankful to our presenters that have joined us, really exciting authors and their wonderful books that are going to be coming from Kensington in the winter and spring, and two of our wonderful editors, Alicia Condon and Shannon Plackett, who are going to be talking, and then, of course, me, Alex Nicolaisen, our Director of Digital Sales and Marketing. And we're just going to talk about some really great books that are upcoming that we are just truly very excited to share with readers and share with the lovely librarians who bring great stories to their patrons every day. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share our presentation, and then I'll turn it over to our first presenter. Here's just a look at some of our exciting upcoming titles that we're going to dive into, starting with Terry Parlato and All the Dark Places.
Good afternoon. As Alex said, my name is Terry Parlato, and I wrote All the Dark Places, which is a domestic thriller about a woman who's had a traumatic past that she's kept secret from everyone except her psychologist husband. He is kind of her rock and her shield and has helped her kind of get through, a very difficult time in her life. When the book opens, we are in a fictional small town outside of Boston. It is January, it's a cold, snowy night, and Molly and Jay Bradley have welcomed their best friends to join them to celebrate Jay's 40th birthday. So it's a wonderful evening, and the friends go home, Molly goes to bed. She wakes up the next morning and she can't find Jay. She looks through the house and finally finds him. He's been murdered in his home office. So of course, Molly is devastated. Her life just completely unravels, especially so when the cops decide that the murderer may very well be one of their very good friends. So what I really hope to accomplish with the book was to show a woman, Molly, who has been through horrible trauma in her past and then now in her present, and her journey to kind of reclaim her life. And I think that speaks to all of us in some way, that we all have things that we have to get through, overcome. And I think that, and I hope that Molly's journey is inspiring to readers rather. The other thing I really wanted to accomplish in this book was with my detective, and her name is Rita Myers, and she's 60 years old. That was super important to me because Rita is not a little old lady. She's not a caricature of old age, but rather she's fit, she's vibrant, she's attractive, she is living her life to the fullest with no plans to slow down or to retire. And I think that speaks to a lot of us too, in that, middle age and the years beyond that don't have to be a time where we retire to the sidelines, that life is still, what we want to make it. So anyway, that's what I had hoped to accomplish with my book. That and the fact that All the Dark Places, I think, is a pretty good, pretty challenging whodunit besides.
Thank you so much for talking about your new thriller, which I read recently and I loved. I think it's perfect for fans of Mary Kubica, and I can't wait for readers to get their hands on it. Next up, we have another book that I read recently that I think is just just a beautiful, beautiful story that everyone needs to read. Suzanne Parry is going to walk us through In the Time of Our History.
Hi, good morning for me. Anyway, I'm in California. In the Time of Our History is a book about a large Iranian American family, but I think it could be about any large family. It's the story of two sisters who are American born, and their parents are immigrants from Iran. And it's about their defiance, really, in their own ways, how they deal with the patriarch, who is the father. It's a portrait of an Iranian American family caught between the traditional values of the older generation born in Iran and the postmodern views of their American bred children. There's tragedy, there are secrets, there's a lot of anger and longing. One of the sisters dies at the beginning of the book. The other sister has defied and been estranged from her family. And it really is about how women in a patriarchal family can somehow stand up to and then create and morph the family into something different. They stand up to the patriarchy and they achieve some kind of independence from it. What's happening in Iran these days with the protests with the Iranian women has been both wonderful timing for this book, but also horrible. But I think that it is a global issue, this issue of women rebelling and wanting their rights. And I think that's apparent also here in the US. So for me, although that was not my intention when I started writing this book so many years ago, what has happened is that I wanted to write about strong women. And now I think everyone is interested in figuring out ways in which we can all stand up for ourselves and for our gender. So I think the book will be a great point of discussion, or a jumping off point of discussion about that issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I thought that was a beautiful description of the book, and I totally agree. And like I said, I think this is a book everyone needs to read, whether you're interested in learning more about the Iranian culture, or just interested in women's rights and powerful women. This is a book that you need to pick up. Next up, we have Amy Spalding with For Her Consideration, which is an LGBTQ rom-com that we are really, really excited to have on the list. We have some great quotes for, so I will turn it over to Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Spalding. I'm also going to hold up my book. Oh, my blur background, it makes it weird. This is my adult rom-com debut. Some of you may know me as a young adult author. I have 6 young adult titles published, including We Used to Be Friends, most recently, and The Summer of Jordi Perez, which had quite a lot of nice critical reception. This is a book about a woman who manages celebrity email accounts for a talent agency, and of course, the bossy star she falls for. And I was really excited to jump into the adult rom-com world. This was something I sort of thought about doing during the pandemic instead of a sourdough starter. And I'm glad I put my energy here. And it's really not just about romance. I really wanted to write about chosen family and connection. And I live in Los Angeles. I work in the entertainment industry. And I think sometimes it's written with a lot of like glamour and fun, but it's also like just a world that has a lot of like Excel sheets and emails you have to send and receive. So it was really fun to me to get to write sort of about the behind the scenes parts that you don't always see. I am really excited that this is also a story about the lead is a fat woman. I am a fat woman, and I love getting to read rom-coms where fat women get to be sexy, get to be the leads, get to have great sex. And it was a joy to start sharing this book with others and seeing the reception to that. Getting to write a queer book, getting to write about women who aren't always the leads feels really important to me. So I'm excited to be here in the adult romance world. I'm hoping people enjoy it.
Thank you so much for coming to join us and talking about your book. Really, really excited. We have the first couple of books that we talked about are coming out in just about a month, but as we go on, there's a little bit more of a wait, but at least for me, I have an arc of this and it's next in my pile. So I am lucky in that way. However,
And
anyone who would
here could request an arc.
Yes, anyone who would like an arc of any of the books we're talking about can send me an email afterwards and I will get them out to everyone as we have them. We don't have arcs yet on every book, but as we do, we will take your info down and send them out as they're available. And next up, we have Gigi listening. I can say for myself, I am like 100% addicted to books that are set in the UK and Ireland. So I actively seek them out. So when I heard what this book was going to be, I was immediately excited. So I will turn it over to someone who will talk a little bit more about the important plot points than me gushing over the setting.
Thank you. Well, how many of you have fallen in love and people ask you, how did you meet? And you tell that story. And I think a lot of us ask each other, what's the story? Because you just want to hear what brought two people together. And so this is about Gigi. She owns a romance bookstore. She loves love stories. And her parents have a beautiful love story where her mom was reading a book and heard a man reading aloud from the same book in her bookstore. And so she just loves that this book brought them together. And she is listening to the audiobook version of this and falls in love with the audiobook narrator's voice. And so for so many reasons, this feels like the person that she is meant to meet. And this person is not only an audiobook narrator, but he leads a bus tour across the British countryside, and he works for his parents' company, just like she owns a bookshop that was once her parents. And so it feels like the stars are aligned, that she can also meet this person in real life, but she doesn't really have the courage to do that, but her friends do. And so for her 30th birthday, they buy her a ticket on this tour with the idea that this is maybe the urge she needed to make this happen for herself and meet this person and see if he's the one. And worst case, she gets this beautiful tour of the British countryside. And so she goes, obviously she goes. And so I really wanted to explore this idea, the stories you tell about how you meet someone and how important that is to the story or not. And also to write sort of a cast of characters who are all on a journey of self-discovery, which ultimately that is what Gigi is. Because I think if you are putting so much weight in how do you find that person that you're meant to be with, you're probably seeking something bigger in your life. And so it's that soul searching that she does on her journey.
Thank you so much for joining us and talking us through this just really adorable, fun, sweet plot. I'm really excited to read it. It's another one that I am looking forward to. It's in the ever-growing pile that I'm sure we can all relate to in terms of the TBR. And then next up, we have Colleen Cambridge with a book that is close to my heart because I just love Julia Child so much, Mastering the Art of French Murder.
So it's after World War II, about 40 years afterward, 1949. And my main character, my protagonist, Tabitha Knight, is kind of at loose ends. She was a Rosie the Riveter during World War II. She worked at the Willow Run bomber plant just outside of Detroit, which I grew up very close to, and had my own grandmother and great aunt who were Rosie the Riveters. Anyway, Tabitha's kind of at loose ends. She doesn't have anything to do now that the war is over. She's just broken up with her fiance. Everybody thought they'd get married. And her grandmother dies, and she decides to go to Paris to live with her grandfather. Her grandfather and grandmother had separated many years earlier when Tabitha's mom and dad moved to Michigan. So the mother is French, the father is American. So Tabitha goes to Paris. Now, Paris in 1949, this actually takes place in December of 1949, is just reawakening from the war, from the occupation. In fact, only a few months before Tabitha gets there, they finally turn on their lights for the first time since the occupation. So Tabitha is just kind of getting settled in Paris, and she meets Julia Child, who's a young woman there, relatively young woman there with her husband, as many of you probably know. Julia, at that point in her life, is just learning how to cook. She's just become enrolled in Le Cordon Bleu. And Julia and Tabitha become friends because Tabitha has no idea how to cook, and she's trying to sort of take care of her grandfather and his friend, her uncle Rafe, that she lives with in this beautiful home in Paris. And she and Julia go to the market all the time. Julia's helping her cook. Tabitha's helping Julia learn French. And one day they come home from the market and there is a dead body in the basement of Julia's cellar of her apartment. And what makes it even worse is there is a bloody chef's knife that happens to belong to Julia Child lying on the floor next to the dead body. Spoiler alert, Julia Child did not murder anybody, but the police detective is already very interested in why her knife was used to kill somebody, why it was in her building. And as it turns out, this young woman had been in Julia's apartment the night before at a little party given by Julia's sister, Dort, short for Dorothy, who was living there at the time. So it's a murder mystery set in Paris in 1949. As I said, the city is just reawakening. Julia is cooking up a storm. Tabitha's trying to learn how not to burn a roasted chicken, and the two of them get involved with trying to solve this mystery and figure out who actually murdered this young woman.
Thank you so much for walking us through this. I just read this book recently as part of my spooky season selections, and it is just so fun. It really transports you to Paris, and I can honestly describe it as frothy, is how I have been talking about it. It's just a lot of fun, and it really gives you an insight into, a side of Julia that, might have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just a lot of fun. And now I will turn it over to Cindy Dees, who is going to talk about Second Shot, which is a really, really exciting thriller that we have coming up for summer 2023. Can't believe we're talking about summer. I can't wait for it to be summer. But this is going to be the perfect read, the perfect vacation read, the perfect beach read, edge of your seat, action-packed. Take it away, Cindy.
Hi there. So yes, this is a book called Second Shot, and it's a traditional spy thriller, old school spy thriller. And the main character is a woman assassin of a certain age named Helen Warwick. And she has just been aged out and forced to retire from the CIA and is at loose ends. And she is hoping to reconnect with her estranged husband and her adult children who have resented her many long absences over the years, as she allegedly traveled overseas as a trade negotiator for the State Department, which was her cover. Her family does not know what she did for a living, and she is bound and determined to keep it that way. Small problem, as soon as she retires without the protection of the CIA, old enemies start to surface and come calling for her for a bit of revenge. So Russian spies come after her, a Russian hit team comes after her, a psychopathic serial killer gets her in his sights, and old enemies inside the CIA even come after her. So she's caught in attempting to learn how to cook and try to make friends with her children again, all the while trying to keep them unaware that she is a badass grandma having to fight for her life against old enemies. And the tension then becomes, can she keep the secret and stay alive and protect her family, all while attempting to take out some old enemies. And I have to give a shout out to Kensington for all of these really feminist books and really strong female characters. It's exciting to see them. And this character came about as I was watching Jack Ryan and Jack Reacher and The Terminal List. And there's all these wonderful male thriller protagonists who get to shoot people and run around and blow things up and have superhero skills. and there were no women. And so I decided it was time to rectify that. And the good news is Helen Warwick and Second Shot have been purchased to become a television show. And I think I'm allowed to say now that Netflix is going to be producing it this coming year. And so not only keep an eye out for the book, but keep an eye out for the television show. I don't know what they'll call it. That's above my pay grade. I would hope it will be some version of either her name, Helen Warwick, or the name of the book. But yeah, a book and a TV show coming where grandma gets to kick butt and take names. I'm very excited.
So exciting. Thank you so much, Cindy, for joining us and for writing this amazing book that another one I cannot wait until we get ARCs in on. Just a lot of good things coming in the new year for sure. And last but not least of our wonderful, beautiful author guests is Robin Geigel with Remain Silent.
Boy, Cindy is a tough act to follow, isn't it? Congratulations, Cindy. That's wonderful. So I'm Robin Geigel. I am the author of Remain Silent. And Remain Silent is the third book in the Erin McCabe series. And so the first two books, By Way of Sorrow and Survivor's Guilt, came out in 2021 and 2022. The good news, and from your standpoint, is that you don't have to have read either one of the first two books to read Remain Silent. All three of the books are standalones, and I reintroduce all the same characters again, so you get to know them fresh. So if you've never read any of the books in the series, it's okay, you can start with Remain Silent. And in Remain Silent, as it's been in the other two books, the main protagonist is Erin McCabe. Erin and her law partner, Dwayne Swisher, continue to try to represent people in criminal cases. They're both criminal defense attorneys. And in Erin's case, she's a transgender woman. So, you know, the interesting thing about that is that I am also a transgender woman. So I am not Erin McCabe, but I wanted to create a character that people who are part of the community could read and identify with, and people who are not part of the community could learn from. So what happens in Remain Silent is that Erin winds up on the wrong side of counsel table because she has become the target of a murder investigation when a new client that she has just met is discovered murdered shortly after their meeting, and she is supposedly the last person to see him alive. And so Erin is the target of this investigation, and Dwayne, her partner, comes along to represent her and try to keep her from being charged with this murder. In addition to the investigation, there's a powerful politician who has been gunning for Erin for several years, and he's trying to do everything he can to influence the investigation so that it goes where Erin is being charged. The other thing that's taking place in the book at the same time is Erin and Dwayne are called upon to represent a mom who has been charged with abducting her child. Her child is also a transgender child. And I tried to deal with the issues, even though this book is set in 2009, I tried to deal with some of the issues that are in the forefront of the transgender community right now in terms of transgender healthcare and things of that nature for minor children. So those are the issues that I tried to deal with. I like to say that my approach to these things is the spoonful of sugar approach. I give people what they want, which is the legal thriller. And I want to get them hooked into what's going on with the cases and what Erin and Dwayne are doing. And at the same time, give them the medicine disguised as what's taking place within the community and what it's like to be a transgender person in society that we live in. So that's Remain Silent, and it comes out in May of 2023.
Thank you so much. I know I've said it already, but there are just so many important books coming on our list with such strong characters and important characters. And I just feel like there's just so many of these books that we're talking about that people just need to read. They're just, must read books. And I hope that we get to put them in as many hands as possible. And I know that no one does that better than our wonderful librarians that are joining us today. Now I'm going to turn it over to the amazing, legendary Alicia Condon to talk about several of her upcoming books that are coming in the spring of next year.
Thank you, Alex, for inviting me to talk about some of my very favorite books. The first one is G.A. Aiken's Heretic Royal. I think, like so many other people right now, I was super excited this fall to be able to dive into 2 new TV fantasy series. One of them, The House of the Dragon, and then, of course, Rings of Power. So many of us are loving this fantasy world that opens up in these 2 series. And for people who want to explore new fantasy worlds, G.A. Aiken's Scarred Earth series is the absolute perfect next step. In The Heretic Royal is the 3rd book in this series. It's about 2 sisters who are both fighting for the same throne and all of the chaos that results for all the people around them in their kingdom. This 3rd sister in The Heretic Royal is an amazing archer. She can hit a leaf from 500 yards away. And all of the characters in G.A. Aiken's books are strong women. We've been talking a lot about feminist issues and strong female characters. You always find them in G.A. Aiken's books. And what you also find is a fabulous sense of humor. The heroes in this series are actually centaurs, and centaurs are not known for becoming involved in the petty affairs of human beings. But because they're attracted to these women, they do become involved in this instance. And they just have this way of looking at all the squabbles and the human foibles around them that is so funny. Readers who pick up G.A. Aiken's books almost inevitably become addicted to them and super fans. And this one is no different. The next series that I want to talk about is from Fern Michaels. I think that part of Fern Michaels' tremendous success as a blockbuster author is because she's able in just a few paragraphs to create characters who are so sympathetic and come so fully to life for the reader. In TikTok, this is the newest of our Sisterhood series. Fern allows an attacker to strike out at one of the sisterhood women themselves, and she is left in a coma. This is the adoptive daughter of the leader of the sisterhood. And of course, all of the sisters rally around. They are not going to stand for this. They're going to bring their own brand of vigilante justice right to the doorsteps of the bad guys. Readers love Fern Michaels because she always champions the underdog. She always champions that person who can't necessarily protect themselves. And that's why the sisterhood is so very popular, because it's a group of women who band together, they have fun together, they love each other, they always have each other's backs, and they go after the bad guys and make sure they're going down. In On the Line, which is Fern's other new book, we have a star chef who is just poised on the brink of having everything he wants. He's got his own restaurant, he's got his own TV show. In his kitchen one night, he suddenly collapses and is rushed to the hospital. He recovers, but part of his recovery, he discovers that he has an unusual illness, which is hereditary. And so he does a deep dive into his own family's past to find out really where he came from. And in the process, he stirs up some very dangerous secrets from his family's past back in South America, and the dangers of the cartels there. And he needs to take action in order to save both his family and his own life. Then we have another of my favorite books, A Calder at Heart. I just love this Calder series by Janet Daly. It's perfect for anybody who enjoys the TV show Yellowstone or the spinoff 1883, because it's also about the beginning of a family ranch dynasty in Montana. And it's set just after World War I, as all of the brave soldiers are coming back from the war. It goes into a little bit some of the traumas that they suffered from mustard gas. The heroine actually was abroad herself, acting as a doctor on the front lines. And when she returns home, she wants to put all of that behind her. But the man that she meets is a soldier who's suffering from PTSD. He's lost his family to the Spanish flu, which was another trauma that was facing the people at that period. And so there's a wonderful backdrop of historical accuracy to this novel, at the same time that there's just so much drama, and of course, a wonderful romance between these two characters. There's also some great drama provided by Prohibition, and one of the villains of the piece who is running illegal alcohol into the small town in Montana where they live. It's a wonderful, heartwarming story with a fantastic historical background. Another book from Janet this year is Blue Moon Haven. This one has a kind of a nostalgic feeling because it's contemporary set, but it's set in a drive-in theater, which I think everybody loves and has happy memories of going to the drive-in, hanging out there, maybe with a boyfriend. This is a very sweet story about a young woman who is trying to raise the children of her best friend. Her best friend passes away from breast cancer, and she takes on these two children who've been through so much. They've been abandoned by their father, and she is bound and determined to turn their lives around. So she moves to this little town in Alabama, takes on the renovation of the local drive-in theater, and the next door neighbor, who initially is all against it, becomes the best friend to all three of them, and more than a friend to our heroine. And diving back into history, we have The Dueling Duchess. Minerva Spencer has been compared by so many critics to the Bridgerton series, because she has the same sparkling wit, the same wonderful sensuality between her characters. And in this instance, our heroine is the owner of a circus that features all female acts, women who are engaged in sports that you don't normally think of women pursuing. For example, boxing was the first book in the series, and in The Dueling Duchess, our heroine is a sharpshooter. She does these amazing feats as part of her act in the circus. She has been scorned by the hero, and as the owner of the circus, she's bound and determined, when he comes to her looking for a job, she is going to teach him how to earn an honest living, and also how to win the love of a real woman. Once again, I guess the theme today, so many books about strong women competing in a man's world. And even though this has a historical setting, it has a very contemporary sensibility from that point of view. In Peril, we have 3 blockbuster authors, Kat Martin, Alexandra Ivy, and Rebecca Zanetti, coming together, each one writing her own novella, but all 3 novellas are connected. They follow the exploits of a bunch of Denver bank robbers who go on a crime spree through the neighboring states, and the ordinary citizens who ultimately put an end to this crime spree. We have a female detective, we have a small town sheriff, we have a beautiful fashion model, and also a Colorado rancher, all of them working separately and together to bring down the bad guys. There is plenty of action. This is such a fun collection of novellas, fast-paced, sexy, and of course, romantic.
Thank you so much, Alicia. As always, you don't disappoint with the books that you bring to our list. And of course, you are perhaps one of our most skilled presenters of everyone at Kensington, I think. So now, tough act to follow, I will turn it over to Shannon to talk about a couple of her really fun upcoming titles.
All right, thank you, Alex. So I wanted to start out with a title I'm very excited about, Georgie All Along. From critically acclaimed author Kate Claiborne comes her newest romance novel, Georgie All Along. When longtime personal assistant Georgie Mulcahy finds herself out of a job, she heads back to her hometown where she must confront an uncomfortable truth. She has completely lost sight of her own wants and needs. But then Georgie comes across a forgotten artifact, a friend-fic diary she wrote as a teenager, filled with all of the goals and hopes she held as a teenager. Georgie decides to try and complete these tasks now as an adult. Her plans hit a snag when she comes face to face with an unexpected roommate, Levi Fanning, the one-time town troublemaker and current town hermit. However, when he agrees to help her on her quest, the two might just find love in the process. Georgie All Along embodies all of the best things about Kate's writing, her thoughtful characterizations, her beautiful prose, and an honest romance at its heart with just the right amount of steam. Ultimately, it is a story about second chances, reinvention, and most importantly, love. I've yet to encounter a reader who has read one of Kate's books and not fallen in love. She's definitely able to appeal to both traditional romance readers and women's fiction readers alike. And I think Georgie is definitely no exception to that. And people will be sure to fall in love with Georgie and Levi and their story. Okay, so next we have someone else's bucket list. And a little bit of a tonal change, but a sisterly P.S. I love you for the digital age. Someone else's bucket list follows Jodie Boyd after the untimely death of her influencer sister Bree. Under the instruction of a series of scheduled videos left by Bree, Jodie sets out to complete her sister's unfinished bucket list, with the world following along. The bucket list items range from the sweet and simple, like planting a tree, to the more silly, like reenacting the Cat's Deli scene from When Harry Met Sally, and to the most important of all, falling in love. Amy does a fantastic job at tugging at your heartstrings by balancing the heavy subject matter and emotions with an uplifting and ultimately hopeful message. She paints characters that you can root for and delivers on their emotional journey and growth throughout the novel. And not to mention, her writing is just plain fun. I laughed out loud when I read this, but I also cried. It explores issues of grief, loss, fear, friendship, love, and of course, the unbreakable bond between sisters. So Someone Else's Bucket List is a novel that will be sure to spark discussion. It will definitely appeal to fans of emotional and reflective women's fiction, that it tends to be aimed at a younger demographic, such as The Two Lives of Lydia Bird by Josie Silver and In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. I think this will be the perfect next read for those readers.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Everyone who presented did a really amazing job, and I'm super nervous now because the next rest of everything is going to be me talking. So we will dive in, starting with Lisa Jackson and Nancy Bush, authors that need no introduction, are back with Wicked Dreams, the final book in their New York Times bestselling Colony series. I have read all of the books in this series. It has been 7 years since the last one. And so I came into this book excited to read it, but also, honestly, I don't remember anything that happened in the prior books at this point. But it can completely be read as a standalone, which I proved by reading it and loving it. So you do not have to have read the previous books in the series to enjoy this. But then again, it's Lisa and it's Nancy. So you know what you're going to get when you pick up their books. And that is a really thrilling, exciting, suspenseful read that will transport you to the Pacific Northwest, where in their books, it is always dark and creepy, and there's a killer lurking around every corner. Next up is Alan Ladd, The Book Spy, another wonderful ARC on my shelf that I can't wait to get to. If there is one thing that people love, it is books about books, because if you're a reader, you just love books, and it's not enough to just be reading one. You need to be reading about them in that book. So in The Book Spy, we are transported to World War II Europe, and in this book, there is a Portuguese setting and an American librarian. So obviously this is the audience for this book. We have librarians who are out there in World War II, making sure that they're doing everything they can to defeat the terrible German war machine. And we have lots of books and lots of excitement, and just a beautiful, well-researched story that you can always expect from Alan Ladd, who is also the author of Churchill's Secret Messenger and The Long Flight Home. And then we have John Gilstrap, another thriller author that you can always count on for a really action-packed read. John is an explosive expert and also an expert on firearms, so he brings that authenticity to every one of his books. This is the third and final book in the Victoria Emerson trilogy, and what is really exciting about this is that John's Jonathan Grave series, of course, stars Jonathan Grave, who is a Black Ops veteran. He is a strong guy out there, kicking butt and taking names. But in this book, we have a female heroine who is out there and really leading the charge after a horrible war basically wipes out life as we know it. And she is working to restore order and restore society in the wake of horrible tragedy. So it's really exciting. It's really well done. And of course, John, being an expert as he is, always infuses that into his writing. And then something very different, Carleen O'Connor's new book in her Irish Village mystery series, Murder at an Irish Bakery, has something for everyone who loves cozy mysteries. You have an Irish setting, you have baking, you have small town, and just a beautifully written and acclaimed story. So in this one, there is also a baking show going on in the background as a backdrop to the story. So there's just something for everyone. There's something that will tick all the boxes for cozy readers. Carleen just launched her first suspense novel just this month with No Strangers Here. Also set in Ireland, but definitely a much darker story. She'll continue the Irish Village Cozy series as she continues to write her suspense novels, and I think it's the perfect way to really pull in every mystery reader, no matter what kind of book that they like. And then in nonfiction, we have The Confidant. Definitely something that readers have really been enjoying is learning about kind of people that they've never heard of, but they should have heard of. And Anna Marie Rosenberg is one of those people. She was kind of at the right hand of numerous presidents during the 20th century and really working politically to ensure that the goals of these presidents were being attained, and then also working with FDR during World War II. She was a trailblazer and doing things that no one thought women could or should be doing at the time. And that is why we have not heard of her and why this is unbelievably the first time someone is telling her story. We've definitely seen a lot of love for our books like this, such as Three Ordinary Girls by Tim Brady, which continues to bring in readers. And we anticipate this will certainly be another book following in those footsteps. And then Lisa Jackson, without Nancy Bush, we have Getting Even. This is an omnibus edition of two suspense novels that had originally been published in the 80s. So I think it's safe to say that most Lisa Jackson readers now have not seen these books, and they have not been able to get these books anywhere in print or in digital until now. It's been a very long time since they've been out there, and we've seen a lot of success with these omnibus editions in the past. They are a great value, 2 books in 1. And of course, we will use this as an opportunity to tease Lisa Jackson's summer hardcover, which will be coming in July. And then also in the female suspense genre, we have Desperate Acts by Alexandra Ivy. This is the new book in her Pike, Wisconsin series. These are creepy serial killer thrillers for fans of Lisa Jackson, for fans of Mary Burton and Kendra Elliott. Alexandra Ivy is a New York Times bestselling author. She has written many books across genres, including paranormal romance, where she continues to write her Guardians of Eternity series for us. There has been a good amount of crossover between those action-packed paranormals and the action-packed suspense, and we are continuing to see more and more readers coming to Alexandra's books, and we wanted to make sure that this one is highlighted and really pull along those previous books in the series as well. Then we have Before the Storm by James Shipman. This is historical fiction set shortly after World War II. And in this, it's a fictionalized account of real life Nazi hunters. So again, a lot of action, a lot of research went into this book. And we've also seen that, like with nonfiction, people love to read fictionalized accounts of real life people that they may not have been familiar with prior to that. And this book definitely answers that demand. The package certainly speaks to that historical fiction reader that's interested in the World War II period historical fiction. And this is definitely a big opportunity for James Shipman to reach a really wide audience. We have 2 additional historical fiction novels that we've published for James Shipman that we will also be promoting leading up to this release, and really getting his name out there with a large campaign. Charlie Donnelly just is one of my favorite authors, period. Whether Kensington or not, if you have not picked up a Charlie Donnelly book, make this your first one, or if you don't want to wait, pick up 20 Years Later, which is available now. Charlie has this way of writing extremely lyrical, beautifully written books about the most twisted, creepy things imaginable. In this book, it's a lone survivor in present day, and as we go along in the book, there are reveals that kind of show what happened in the past and how that's impacting things that are beginning to happen in the present day. And Charlie just expertly weaves together these stories and with 20 years later, there was a huge influx of new readers to his books, and we've just seen so much love for them. And I'm just really excited to bring this new book out and reach all of those people who have seen, like I have, that Charlie is just amazing. Sabrina Jeffries, obviously, what introduction can I give to Sabrina besides to say she is a legend in historical romance? And this will be the second book in her Designing Debutante series after A Duke for Diana, which came out last June. These books are perfect for your Bridgerton fans. They're perfect for historical romance fans. I think the packaging is definitely hitting that Bridgerton stride, and this should, we don't know, but I would assume it will be dropping just around the time the new season of Bridgerton comes out. Not that I am counting the days until that happens, but I am. So I'm really excited to read this next book, and of course, see fans of Bridgerton come to this series because I know they will just absolutely love it. Mark Cameron, Breakneck. This is the new Arliss Cutter thriller. Mark Cameron, you may know, if not from the Arliss Cutter series, certainly from writing several of the Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan novels. He is another author who has really been there. He is a former U.S. Marshal, so he brings all of that authenticity to his stories. He is a native of Alaska, so he infuses that time and place into his books as well. It is always cold, it is always dark, and it is always action-packed in a book from Mark Cameron, and this one will be no exception. Ellery Adams is a New York Times bestselling author of our Secret Book and Scone Society series. Cozy fans have just absolutely been loving these books, and every time a new book in the series comes out, more and more readers come to it. And I think with this book, we will certainly see even more fans coming in because they do appeal to a broad audience, even outside the cozy, you know, your traditional cozy fan. I think they have a fun, bright package. I think this package will certainly appeal at Mother's Day as well. It's a fun spring read. It's a murder mystery. And again, it's a book about books. So what is not to love? Pete Early, No Human Contact. This is another really, really important book that I think everyone needs to read, that we are publishing this coming spring. Pete Early is a Pulitzer Prize finalist for his book, The Hot House. And in this book, he's going back inside American prisons and exploring specifically long-term solitary confinement and the impact that that has on those prisoners who have been put into that situation. He is certainly the perfect author to kind of tell these stories and bring them to the forefront of a conversation that is ongoing, given the American prison system and the prison population and the way it is constantly part of our national discussion. Shauna Abe is back with An American Beauty. I am sure you recall the second Mrs. Astor, beautiful, beautiful historical fiction novel set on the Titanic with John Jacob Astor and his young wife, Madeline Astor. Continues to be a top performing book. People can't get enough of the really touching, heart-wrenching story. And of course, Shauna's beautiful writing. In this book, she takes us to the Gilded Age and tells the story of Arabella Huntington, who is beautiful, but also a self-made, strong businesswoman in a time where women did not do things like that. It is another historical fiction novel based on real life character, and also a character that is portrayed in the show The Gilded Age on HBO. So there will be some familiarity with her for fans of that show. And then New York Times bestselling author Jodie Thomas launches a brand new series with a cover that I just can't get enough of, because strawberries. Strawberry Lane is just such an inviting story, an inviting package, an inviting title. Jodie Thomas takes readers into the heart of small town Texas better than anyone else. And she's been doing it for a very long time. She has a really broad audience of fans of her books. And I think new series is always the perfect time to bring in new readers. This is a spinoff from her Honey Creek series. So fans of that series will be able to pick up here. And if you did not read Honey Creek, you can dive in at Strawberry Lane and be right in the middle of this amazing small town that is close-knit, where everybody is looking out for everyone else. In the Case of Heartbreak by Courtney Kay is the follow-up to In the Event of Love, which just came out in September and is actually Christmas set. So if you haven't picked it up, now is the perfect time to pick it up. In this book, we have a really fun queer rom-com featuring two men who are falling in love in a beautiful setting at the shore. And Courtney is a very acclaimed author. She received a slew of amazing quotes for her first book, including from Allie Hazelwood. And this is just another really fun, touching, heartwarming story that will be, again, perfect summer and spring reading. Lone Star Legacy is the follow-up to Forever Texas from the legendary John Stone writing team. These books are set on the King Ranch in Texas. They are just the epitome of the American West, and Forever Texas has been extremely successful. I think people will be really excited to return to that setting, return to that time, and read more of these thrilling and beautifully written John Stone trade paperbacks. Speaking of books about books and cozy mysteries about books, we have Dedication to Murder from USA Today bestselling author Lauren Elliott. This is the new book in her Beyond the Page bookstore mystery series. The last several books have all hit the USA Today list. People just love her books, and she's actually launching a new series in hardcover at the end of this month. So lots of great things happening for Lauren Elliott and her readers. And this should be another really exciting best-selling entry into her series. The Language of Love and Loss from Bart Yates is a new fiction novel that explores the relationship between a gay man and his mother, who has recently been diagnosed with ALS. They have had a fraught relationship for his basically his entire adult life, and upon her diagnosis, he needs to return home to his New Hampshire hometown and kind of reconcile the feelings and the things that they've shared through his life and also his life choices. This is just a beautifully written book that, again, tells a very important story. And I anticipate that for Pride Month, this will certainly be a book that a lot of people will be gravitating to pick up. Last to Eat, Last to Learn. I know we've said a lot of these books are very important, but they just are. Like, I am just so blown away by so many books that we are bringing to readers in this upcoming season. Last to Eat, Last to Learn is by Pashtana Durrani, who was the first recipient of a grant from the Malala Fund. And she has just done so much work to educate the girls of Afghanistan in the face of just horrible adversity. She has overcome so much, and this is her story. And we anticipate a quote from Malala And it's just going to be a really important and moving story that, again, everyone should pick up. Such Good Friends by Stephen Greco is a historical novel, again, based on real life people. This explores the relationship of Truman Capote with Louis Radziwill in the 60s and 70s. So we're diving right into high society New York during those decades. There is a huge readership for these type of books. Obviously, Truman Capote is someone, a figure that people are always very excited to read more about. And I think with this package and the story, people will certainly be very happy to get their hands on this one and this entry into that kind of canon of books. And last, but certainly not least, we have the amazing Madeline Hunter and her conclusion to her Duke's Heiress series with The Heiress Bride. Regency romance at its best. There's been 2 years between books, so readers will be very anxious to get their hands on the conclusion of this trilogy. I think this cover is just beautiful. It's so inviting. It is traditional Regency with a bit of a twist. And Madeline is just one of the best at what she does. So very exciting for this new book. So thank you so much to everyone to all our attendees, of course, and thank you so much to everybody who came and talked about their books and took the time. And I, again, will be happy to answer any questions. You can email me at marketing@kensingtonbooks.com for any ARC requests or any other questions about any of our upcoming releases, whether we talked about them today or whether they were not on this list. I am always happy to talk about books and send out ARCs. That is what I am here for. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone.